The faint hum of an old tape recorder fills the dimly lit room, its reels spinning unevenly as though struggling to capture something just beyond their reach. The air here, in this cramped study tucked away on the outskirts of Italy, smells of damp wood, ancient ink, and something metallic, something unsettlingly alive. Beyond the cracked window pane, the city fades into shadow, its usual bustle replaced by an eerie stillness that seems to creep closer with each passing moment. At first glance, everything appears still, too still. But then you notice it, the faintest movement in the corner of your vision gone before you can focus, a rustle of parchment, a creak of wood, and then silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. In the center of this quiet chaos sits Corrado Malanga, his brow furrowed as he leans over a desk cluttered with artifacts. Half-finished equations scrawled across scraps of paper, diagrams of geometric shapes that seem to shift when glanced at too long, and a small glass vial containing what looks like ash, but isn't. His hands move steadily, yet there's a palpable tension in his posture, as if every motion carries the weight of a discovery too dangerous to ignore. What began as mere academic curiosity has spiraled into something far darker, consuming his life and chipping away at his very sanity. For months, Malanga had been meticulously piecing together fragments of testimony from individuals who claimed to have encountered beings unlike anything science could explain. At first, he dismissed them as delusions or hoaxes, clinging to the rational. But the patterns were undeniable. Relentless, consistent descriptions of advanced technologies, cryptic symbols etched into skin or stone, and emotions so intense they left physical marks. Each account pulled him deeper into a web he didn't fully understand and now didn't want to. Tonight, however, the threads are tightening. The veil between the known and the unknowable feels thinner than ever. As Malanga flips through the pages of his worn journal, one entry catches his eye. A phrase written in jagged handwriting he doesn't recognize. They see through your eyes. He freezes. He doesn't remember writing it. Yet it stares back at him, accusatory and unyielding. Nearby, the lantern flickers once, twice, and then goes out completely, plunging the room into absolute blackness. For a moment, all is silent. Then comes the whisper, not in his ears, but somewhere deeper, resonating like a vibration in his chest. "You're close," it murmurs, soft but insistent. "Too close." Malanga fumbles for matches, his breath shallow, his heart pounding. When the flame finally leaps to life, he looks down at the journal again. The phrase has changed. Now it reads, "Look away while you still can, but it's too late." From the shadows behind him, something stirs. A soundless shift, a presence that shouldn't be there. Malanga turns slowly, deliberately, his lantern held high. At first, he sees nothing, just an empty space. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he glimpses it. A figure standing just beyond the light, its form shifting, indistinct yet unmistakably aware. Its gaze locks onto his, and for a heartbeat, the air itself seems to freeze. And then it speaks, not aloud, but directly into his mind. Why do you resist? You already know the truth. This story is not merely about unraveling mysteries, it is about confronting the devastating cost of knowledge. It forces us to consider whether humanity is truly ready for truths that rewrite not only our past, but our very identity. If even part of Malanga's findings holds water, then everything we think we know about reality, consciousness and free will is built on shifting sand. This isn't academic, it's existential horror. Suddenly, the temperature drops sharply, forcing a violent shiver down Malanga's spine. The shadows along the walls stretch unnaturally, pooling around the edges of the room like liquid darkness. When he looks back at the journal, the phrase has changed again. Now it reads, "Run." Before he can react, the floor beneath him shifts, not dramatically, but enough to make him stumble. It's subtle, almost imperceptible, yet it conveys a single chilling truth. Whatever force is guiding these events is no longer content to remain passive. In that instant, Malanga realizes the ultimate stakes. This is not a game of observation, it is a test of survival, and the questions he seeks to answer may demand sacrifices he isn't prepared to make. Corrado Malanga's story doesn't begin in rebellion, but in rigorous discipline, a hallmark of his training as a chemist and academic. Born in Italy in the mid-20th century, Malanga grew up during a period of rapid scientific advancement. Humanity seemed poised to conquer the universe's mysteries through sheer reason and experimentation. From an early age, he displayed a keen intellect and insatiable curiosity about the natural world, traits that would later define his career. By the time he reached adulthood, Malanga was a respected figure in chemistry, known for his meticulous research and innovative problem-solving. Yet beneath the surface of his conventional success lay a mind perpetually probing the boundaries of observable reality. While his peers focused on molecules, reactions, and empirical data, Malanga found himself drawn to questions that defied easy categorization. What lies beyond human perception? Are there forces or intelligence operating just outside the scope of our instruments? These musings remained largely private, confined to late-night reflections or speculative conversations with like-minded colleagues. That is until a series of encounters began to challenge everything he thought he knew. The turning point came when Malanga stumbled upon reports of alien abductions. At first, these accounts struck him as fanciful tales born of overactive imaginations or cultural hysteria. However, the more he delved into the testimonies, the more patterns emerged. Patterns too consistent to dismiss as mere coincidence. Witnesses described strange symbols appearing on their skin, memories of invasive procedures conducted aboard unidentified crafts, and profound emotional states ranging from terror to euphoria. Most unsettling was the recurring theme of non-human entities manipulating human consciousness with surgical precision. Malanga's initial skepticism quickly gave way to cautious curiosity as he applied his scientific rigor to analyze the evidence. Through regressive hypnosis, a technique he employed to bypass conscious resistance, he uncovered details so intricate and specific they defied easy explanation. Abductees spoke of advanced technologies, harnessing energy fields unknown to contemporary science, biological processes resembling genetic engineering, and interactions with beings whose physiology suggested mastery over dimensions beyond human comprehension. Each session peeled back another layer of reality, revealing glimpses of a system far more complex than anything Malanga had encountered in his laboratory. One particularly compelling case involved a woman named Elena. Under hypnosis, her detailed recollections included descriptions of crystalline structures resonating at frequencies capable of altering molecular bonds. To Malanga, who had spent years studying material sciences, these insights felt eerily accurate, mirroring theories and technologies still nascent or purely speculative within mainstream academia. Yet, what truly unnerved him was Elena's ability to articulate celestial mechanics and astrophysical phenomena with startling precision, knowledge she could not have acquired through formal education or casual observation. As Malanga pieced together these fragments, a disturbing picture began to emerge. The abductees' experiences pointed not to random anomalies, but to a deliberate mechanism designed to extract something intrinsic to human existence, emotional and spiritual energy. Unlike traditional interpretations of belief systems or religious manipulation, Malanga approached this extraction from a purely scientific perspective. He hypothesized that emotions functioned as a form of bioenergetic currency, harvested by entities operating on frequencies undetectable by human senses. These beings, he argued, used advanced tools to tap into the neural networks governing emotion and memory, creating feedback loops, cycles of fear, love, guilt, and desire that ensured a continuous flow of energy. This realization marked a seismic shift in Malanga's worldview. If true, it implied that much of what humanity considers sacred, faith, relationships, even joy, might serve purposes far removed from individual fulfillment. Instead, these experiences could be engineered to sustain a hidden ecosystem. One, where humans were neither creators nor masters, but resources harvested for consumption. For Malanga, the implications were staggering. His work no longer pertained solely to chemistry. It intersected metaphysics, consciousness studies, and existential philosophy. He began to see parallels between ancient myths, modern ufology, and emerging research in quantum physics, all pointing toward a single, cohesive framework. Earth as a farm, humanity as livestock, and consciousness as the crop. By the late 1980s, Malanga's investigations had taken him far beyond the confines of traditional science. He published papers and delivered lectures challenging entrenched paradigms, advocating for a multidisciplinary approach to understanding the interconnectedness of matter, energy, and mind. Critics dismissed his ideas as pseudoscience, accusing him of abandoning empirical principles in favor of speculation. Supporters, however, saw his work as groundbreaking, offering a lens through which to view humanity's place in a cosmos teeming with intelligence both seen and unseen. Through it all, Malanga remained driven not by a desire for fame or recognition, but by an unrelenting pursuit of truth. Science, he often remarked, is not about proving what is comfortable, it is about questioning what is assumed. And question he did, relentlessly peeling back layers of reality until he stood face to face. With possibilities both exhilarating and terrifying, every revelation brought clarity, but also new questions, deeper uncertainties, and a growing awareness of just how little humanity truly understands. Thus, the stage was set for Malanga's emergence as a polarizing figure, straddling the line between academic rigor and intellectual heresy. From his modest beginnings as a chemist to his role as a pioneer in the study of non-human intelligence, his journey exemplifies the timeless struggle between conformity and curiosity. And yet, despite the mounting evidence, the greatest revelations and controversies were still to come. The deeper Corrado Malanga delved into the labyrinth of his research, the more the walls began to close in, not just metaphorically, but palpably. By the early 1990s, his work had transcended mere academic inquiry and entered the realm of existential crisis. What began as an exploration of anomalous phenomena had evolved into something far more personal, a confrontation with forces that seemed intent on testing his resolve and perhaps his sanity. Malanga's experiments grew increasingly ambitious, bordering on reckless. He constructed elaborate sensory deprivation chambers designed to isolate participants from external stimuli, creating conditions he believed would facilitate contact with non-human intelligence. These sessions often lasted for hours, during which subjects reported vivid visions, disembodied voices, and sensations of being touched or probed by unseen hands. While some emerged shaken but unharmed, others experienced profound psychological distress, requiring immediate medical intervention. One participant, identified only as Subject 14, described feeling as though her consciousness had been pulled, out of her body and thrust into a vast, geometrically structured void, a description eerily similar to accounts given by individuals claiming near-death experiences. As these incidents accumulated, so too did the scrutiny. Critics within the scientific community dismissed Malanga's findings as artifacts of suggestion or hallucination, accusing him of exploiting vulnerable individuals for sensationalist purposes. While skeptics argue that such phenomena can be explained by neurological responses to stress or environmental manipulation, wrote Dr. Lucia Bianchi, a neuroscientist at the University of Milan, the consistency of certain elements across multiple testimonies demands closer examination. Yet even this cautious acknowledgement was met with derision, further isolating Malanga from mainstream academia. Meanwhile, institutional pressure mounted. Funding for his projects dried up entirely after several high-profile donors withdrew their support, citing ethical concerns. Rumors circulated that Malanga had been unofficially blacklisted, his name whispered in corridors where once it had inspired respect. Despite these challenges, or perhaps because of them, Malanga doubled down on his efforts, convinced that the answers he sought were worth any price. "Science is not a popularity contest," he famously remarked during a heated exchange with a colleague. "If we shy away from uncomfortable truths, we cease to be scientists." It was during this period of escalating tension that Malanga encountered what he later referred to as the event horizon, a series of occurrences so inexplicable they defied both rational explanation and conventional fear. In February 1992, while conducting a session with a subject named Marco Rossi, Malanga recorded an incident that would haunt him for the rest of his life. According to contemporaneous notes, Rossi entered a deep trance state and began speaking in a language no one present recognized. When linguists analyzed the recording weeks later, they identified fragments resembling ancient Sumerians, interspersed with mathematical equations describing multidimensional geometries. But the most chilling aspect occurred when the audio playback revealed faint whispers layered beneath Rossi's voice, whispers that appeared to respond directly to questions posed by Malanga in real time. This incident marked a turning point, not only in Malanga's research, but also in his personal life. Reports suggest that he became increasingly paranoid, convinced that he was being monitored, not by human agents, but by the very entities he sought to study. He installed surveillance cameras throughout his home and laboratory, only to discover footage showing inexplicable movements, shadows shifting without apparent cause, objects rearranging themselves overnight, and fleeting glimpses of humanoid figures darting just beyond the frame. As paranormal investigator Dr. Sofia Moretti observed, the evidence, while inconclusive, raises disturbing possibilities about the nature of perception and reality. By late 1993, Malanga's obsession had reached a fever pitch. He began documenting everything, his dreams, his thoughts, even seemingly random events with obsessive precision. His journals from this period reveal a mind grappling with cognitive dissonance. Passages oscillate between logical analysis and raw emotional turmoil. On one page, he meticulously diagrams a theoretical model of consciousness as a quantum field. On the next, he scrawls frantic warnings to himself, "Don't look at the symbols, they're not safe." Friends and colleagues noted a marked change in his demeanor. Where once he had exuded confidence and intellectual rigor, now he seemed perpetually on edge, glancing over his shoulder as if expecting someone or something to appear at any moment. The stakes escalated further when Malanga received a letter containing no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper bearing a cryptic message, written in a script he did not recognize. Beneath it, however, was a phrase in Italian: "You have gone too far." Accompanying the note was a photograph of Malanga leaving his laboratory, taken from an angle that suggested the photographer had been inside the building, a location secured by multiple locks and alarms. Shaken but undeterred, Malanga submitted the materials to forensic analysis, which yielded no fingerprints, DNA, or other trace evidence. The photograph itself proved equally baffling. Experts could find no digital alterations, yet the timestamp indicated it had been taken days before Malanga claimed to have last visited the lab. These events culminated in what many consider the defining moment of Malanga's career, a public lecture delivered in November 1994 at a small conference in Turin. Addressing a sparse audience of academics, journalists, and curious onlookers, Malanga presented a radical hypothesis. Drawing on years of data, he proposed that humanity was not merely a product of evolutionary chance, but part of a larger experiment orchestrated by advanced intelligence operating beyond our dimensional plane. These beings, he argued, manipulated human consciousness through carefully engineered cycles of emotion and belief, using tools ranging from religious dogma to technological innovation. "We are not alone," he declared, his voice trembling with conviction, "and we never have been." The reaction was swift and polarizing. Some attendees praised Malanga's courage in challenging entrenched paradigms, hailing him as a visionary thinker willing to confront uncomfortable truths. Others dismissed his claims as pseudo-scientific nonsense, accusing him of undermining the credibility of serious research. Journalist Roberto Ferri captured the dichotomy in his coverage for Corriere della Sera. To listen to Malanga is to stand at the crossroads of reason and madness, unsure whether to marvel at his audacity or recoil from his hubris. But the true measure of escalation came in the aftermath of the lecture. Within weeks, Malanga reported receiving anonymous threats, both subtle and overt. His car was vandalized, its tires slashed, and windows shattered. A fire broke out in his laboratory under suspicious circumstances, destroying years of irreplaceable data. Most alarming was a phone call received late one night, during which a distorted voice delivered a single sentence: "Stop digging." Though Malanga immediately contacted authorities, no leads materialized, leaving him to wonder whether the source of these threats was human or something else entirely. Despite the mounting danger, Malanga refused to abandon his work. Instead, he retreated further into isolation, surrounding himself with a small circle of trusted collaborators who shared his vision, or at least tolerated his eccentricities. Together, they continued their experiments, pushing deeper into territories few dared to explore. Yet each revelation brought new questions, new uncertainties, and a growing awareness that the forces they sought to understand might view them, not as partners in discovery, but as unwitting participants in a game whose rules remained hidden. For Malanga, the choice was clear: press forward, regardless of the cost. As he confided to a close associate shortly before disappearing from public view, "If we are indeed living in a simulation, or worse, a farm, then ignorance is not bliss. It is slavery, and I will not live as a slave." The final chapter of Corrado Malanga's journey unfolded not with a triumphant revelation, but with an unraveling, a descent into the unknown that left both his colleagues and critics grappling with questions far larger than the man himself. By early 1995, Malanga had all but vanished from public life, retreating to a remote villa in the Tuscan countryside. Those who managed to reach him during this period described a man transformed, gaunt, hollow-eyed, yet radiating an intensity that bordered on manic. His once pristine laboratory now resembled a chaotic shrine to his obsessions, its walls covered in overlapping diagrams, equations, and cryptic symbols scrawled in ink, chalk, and even blood. It was here, amid this self-imposed exile, that Malanga conducted what would become his most controversial and ultimately defining experiment. Dubbed Project Eventide in his fragmented notes, the undertaking sought to push the boundaries of human perception to their absolute limit. Using a combination of hypnosis, electromagnetic field manipulation, and sensory deprivation, Malanga aimed to create conditions under which participants could consciously interact with non-human intelligence. The goal was not merely to observe, but to communicate, to ask the questions burning in his mind. Who are you? Why are we here? What do you want from us? The first few sessions yielded little more than the usual mix of hallucinations and disjointed visions. But on the night of March 17, 1995, something extraordinary and deeply unsettling occurred. According to Malanga's journal entries, one participant, a young woman named Lucia Marini, entered a trance state so profound it seemed to transcend ordinary consciousness. Her voice changed, becoming guttural and layered, as though multiple entities were speaking through her simultaneously. She began reciting strings of numbers and geometric coordinates, interspersed with phrases in languages long extinct. Then, in flawless Italian, she turned to Malanga and said, "You should not have called us." The room temperature plummeted. The equipment malfunctioned without explanation. Shadows moved independently of light sources, coalescing into forms that defied logic. Witnesses reported feeling an oppressive weight settle over them, as if the air itself had thickened. When Malanga attempted to end the session, Lucia's body convulsed violently, her eyes rolling back until only the whites were visible. In a voice devoid of emotion, she whispered, "It is too late." What followed has been pieced together from incomplete records and second-hand accounts. Malanga reportedly spent the next several hours frantically documenting every detail, his handwriting growing increasingly erratic. At some point, he activated a backup recorder, capturing audio that remains one of the most hotly debated artifacts of his work. On the tape, faint whispers can be heard beneath Lucia's labored breathing, whispers that seem to respond to Malanga's unspoken thoughts. Near the end of the recording, a single phrase emerges clearly: "Look away while you still can." When dawn broke, Lucia was found unconscious on the floor, her vital signs alarmingly weak. Malanga refused to call for medical assistance instead, insisting that she remain under observation until she regained consciousness. When she finally awoke, nearly 24 hours later, she claimed to have no memory of the event, but bore fresh scars on her arms in patterns resembling the symbols Malanga had been studying. The incident marked the beginning of the end. Over the following weeks, Malanga became increasingly reclusive, communicating only sporadically with his inner circle. He burned much of his research, citing fears that it might fall into the wrong hands, or worse, attract unwanted attention. Yet fragments survived, smuggled out by trusted associates who believed the world needed to know what he had uncovered. Among these documents was a letter addressed to no one in particular, written in a tone of quiet resignation. "I have seen things I cannot unsee. I have learned truths I cannot unlearn. If there is a purpose to our existence, it is not ours to define. Beware those who claim otherwise." Malanga disappeared shortly thereafter. His car was found abandoned along a deserted road, its keys still in the ignition. Inside, investigators discovered a notebook containing sketches of geometric shapes, and a single sentence scrawled across the final page: "They are watching." Despite extensive searches, no trace of him was ever found. In the years since Malanga's disappearance, his work has taken on a life of its own, inspiring both reverence and ridicule. To skeptics, he is a cautionary tale, a brilliant mind derailed by hubris and obsession. To proponents, he is a martyr for truth, a pioneer who dared to challenge humanity's place in the cosmos. Modern researchers continue to debate the validity of his findings, particularly in light of advancements in quantum physics and consciousness studies. As Dr. Elena Morandi, a contemporary neuroscientist, noted in a 2020 paper, while Malanga's methods may lack empirical rigor, his questions remain profoundly relevant. Are we alone? Is reality as we perceive it merely a construct? And if so, who or what is constructing it? Philosophically, Malanga's legacy raises uncomfortable implications about free will, agency, and the nature of belief. If his hypothesis holds any merit, that humanity exists within a system engineered by higher dimensional intelligence, it forces us to reconsider not only our past, but also our future. Are we capable of breaking free from this alleged simulation, or are we doomed to perpetuate cycles designed to exploit our emotional energy? These questions resonate deeply in an age where artificial intelligence and virtual realities blur the lines between creator and creation. For many, Malanga's story serves as a reminder of the double-edged sword of curiosity. In seeking to illuminate the shadows, we risk awakening forces beyond our comprehension. Yet, as he once wrote, truth is not always kind, but it is always necessary. Perhaps the most haunting aspect of Malanga's disappearance is its ambiguity. Did he succumb to madness, or did he transcend the limitations of human understanding? Whatever the answer, his journey underscores a universal truth. Some mysteries resist resolution, lingering like echoes in the dark corners of our collective psyche. And perhaps that is how it should be, for in confronting the unknown, we confront ourselves. As we reflect on Corrado Malanga's extraordinary journey, we cannot help but feel the weight of his unanswered questions and the profound implications they hold for humanity. His story is not merely one of scientific ambition or personal unraveling. It is a testament to the enduring human drive to seek truth, even when that truth threatens to shatter our understanding of reality. In Malanga's case, the pursuit of knowledge became both a gift and a curse, a double-edged sword that illuminated the shadows while casting new ones in their place. What makes Malanga's legacy so compelling is its ambiguity. Did he uncover evidence of higher dimensional intelligence manipulating human consciousness, or did his relentless probing into the unknown lead him down a path of psychological unraveling? The answer lies somewhere in the interplay between these possibilities, challenging us to consider whether such distinctions are even meaningful. After all, history is replete with examples of individuals who dared to question the nature of existence. Galileo, Tesla, Jung, and whose work was met with equal parts skepticism and wonder. Malanga now joins their ranks, a figure both celebrated and contested, his contributions as enigmatic as the phenomena he sought to explain. Yet perhaps the most unsettling aspect of his story is how it forces us to confront our own limitations. If Malanga's hypothesis holds any validity, that humanity exists within a system engineered by unseen forces, it raises profound questions about free will, agency, and the very essence of what it means to be human. Are we truly autonomous beings, charting our course through the cosmos? Or are we players in a grand design, our emotions and experiences harvested like crops on an existential farm? These are not easy questions to entertain, let alone answer. Yet, as Malanga himself might have argued, the act of asking them is itself a form of liberation, a refusal to accept the world as it appears at face value. Modern science offers tantalizing parallels to Malanga's work. Advances in quantum mechanics suggest that reality may indeed be far stranger than we imagine, shaped by probabilities, entanglements, and dimensions beyond our sensory reach. Similarly, research into artificial intelligence and virtual simulations challenges us to reconsider the boundaries between creator and creation. Could it be that Malanga, operating decades ahead of his time, glimpsed fragments of truths that contemporary researchers are only beginning to explore? As Dr. Sofia Moretti, a physicist specializing in multidimensional theory, remarked in a recent interview, Malanga's ideas may have been dismissed as fringe, but they resonate deeply, with concepts emerging at the cutting edge of theoretical physics. Perhaps he wasn't wrong, just early. Ultimately, Malanga's disappearance leaves us with more questions than answers, a fitting conclusion for a man who spent his life chasing mysteries. Was he taken by the very entities he sought to understand? Did he transcend the limits of human perception, stepping into realms inaccessible to the rest of us? Or did he simply walk away, unable to bear the weight of what he had uncovered? We may never know, but perhaps that is the point. Some stories are meant to remain unresolved, serving as mirrors, reflecting our deepest fears and aspirations. In the end, Malanga's journey reminds us of something profoundly universal: the courage required to stare into the abyss, and the humility needed to accept that not all mysteries yield to scrutiny. As he once wrote in the margins of his journal, to seek truth is to embrace uncertainty, and in that embrace lies the seed of transformation. The screen fades to black, leaving only the faint echo of Malanga's final recorded words. They are watching, a haunting reminder that whether real or imagined, the unknown remains eternal and eternally fascinating.